Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Paris Schutz. Brandis Friedman will join us. I knew I was going to do that at some point. Brandis Friedman will join us shortly. Here's what we're looking at.
In 7 years, I still don't have the answers. I still don't know what happened to my son.
A grieving mother calls for justice in the killing of her 22-year-old son.
It's like the little theater that could.
But could the wrecking ball be coming to the 400 Theater in Rogers Park? We have a live report. Thank God it's Thursday. We talk about the pros and cons of a 4-day work week.
It's beautiful. You can't help but take a photo of it.
And it's one of the most diverse plants around, and they're magnified at Chicago Botanic Garden. We take you inside the Orchid Show.
In Paris, as you mentioned, I'm in Rogers Park as part of our Chicago Tonight in Your Neighborhood series. Now, we're inside a movie theater that survived 2 world wars, 2 pandemics, and the ever-changing movie industry. However, the current owner is looking to sell it, and its future looks uncertain. We'll have more about that, but first, I send it back to you.
Joanna, thank you. A grieving mother is looking for answers and the full report by the city's inspector general into the killing of her 22-year-old son, Courtney Copeland. WTTW News reporter Heather Sharon is here with a look at Chaparral Wells' fight for justice. Heather.
Brandis, not only does Chaparral Well want to know who killed her son, but she also wants to know why Chicago police officers didn't do more to assist her wounded son and why he died while handcuffed after asking officers for help. 7 years ago, someone shot Courtney Copeland while he was driving. Despite his injuries, Copeland made it to the police station at Grand and Central Avenues. There he collapsed after begging for help, according to the city's watchdog. His mother, Chaparral Wells, still wants answers.
It's very painful because in 7 years, I still don't have the answers. I still don't know what happened to my son. 7 years, I'm still fighting, trying to find the truth.
To get those answers, Wells partnered with the Invisible Institute and reporter Jamie Calvin to create the podcast called Somebody. That reporting found 13 minutes passed before an ambulance carrying Copeland left for a trauma center. And when Copeland arrived, he was handcuffed as if he were a criminal, not a victim.
That cost my son his life. I am certain that if my son had immediately gotten the help that he needed, my son would be alive to tell the story today.
The podcast prompted former Inspector General Joe Ferguson to launch his own probe of what happened to Courtney Copeland. But by law, that report does not have to be released to the public. From a summary of the report that was released, we know that the Inspector General recommended 2 members of the Chicago Police Department face discipline for the way they responded to Copeland's death. But neither officer faced serious punishment. One resigned before the probe was completed, and one received a written reprimand. Wells calls that an insult.
As if this was a figment of my imagination, that this didn't occur to my son. And that's what the anger comes, because it basically tells me that my son's life didn't mean anything. That's tragic for me.
As a society, as a city, we have a moral obligation. It's really an imperative when tragedies like this occur to learn everything that can possibly be learned towards the future. Towards reducing the probability of similar harms in the future.
The Inspector General also found that a Chicago police detective was disrespectful to Wells when she demanded answers about what officers were doing to find her son's killer, a killer who remains at large 7 years later. For Wells, that treatment was another insult to the injury caused by her son's death, a death that she is determined not to let eclipse Courtney's life.
He had this bubbly personality. He was full of life. And he made everyone feel special as if they were his best friend. And that's how I want him to be remembered.
Mayor Lori Lightfoot's office declined to respond to our questions about the investigation into Courtney Copeland's death. And this issue could very well end up on the desk of Chicago's next mayor, who will take office in a little more than 2 months.
And Heather, the Office of the Inspector General is now led by Deborah Witzberg. What does she think about Chaparral Wells' call for this report to be released?
Well, she says that this incident qualifies to be released under the city's law because it includes death and serious allegations of sustained misconduct. Whether it will be released, of course, is up to Corporation Counsellor Celia Meza, and she has said that she will give Chaparral Wells an answer within 2 weeks.
Okay, 2 weeks. Heather Sharon, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And now back to Paris for more of today's top stories.
And Brandon, the Chicago Police Department has a new interim leader. Former First Deputy Eric Carter took over today for outgoing Superintendent David Brown, whose last official day was Wednesday. Carter's a 30-year veteran on the force, serving in several different areas, including counterterrorism, organized crime, and is commander of 2 different police districts. It's unclear how long Carter's tenure will last, as the brand-new Interim Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability says it has begun its search for 3 finalists for the next mayor to choose from. Day 1 of the NCAA March Madness tournament, and it was a mixed bag for teams from the great state of Illinois. The flagship state school, U of I, fell to the Arkansas Razorbacks 73-63. But 7th seed Northwestern outlasted Boise State, taking away a 75-67 victory in the first round game. The Wildcats move on to face the winner of the UCLA North Carolina Asheville game going on right now. And there are a trio of furry little lion cubs at the Lincoln Park Zoo, and today they got their names. The zoo would like you to meet Pesho, Sidai, and Lomelak. The names are all in the Ma language and were chosen by Maasai lion guardians in Tanzania. The cubs were born January 9th, and a checkup in February revealed that all 3 were males. They joined big brother Pilipili, who was born in March 2022, the zoo's first African lion cub in 20 years. And coming up in the program, so distracted by the cuteness of those lions. Coming up in the program, how'd you like a 3-day weekend every week? But first, to Rogers Park and a beloved local movie house at risk of disappearing. That's right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
Movie theaters have struggled since the pandemic to bring people back to the big screens. Surviving theaters have been forced to innovate to stay in business. For this week's In Your Neighborhood, reporter Joanna Hernandez and producer Blair Paddock are in Rogers Park, where one of the city's oldest and longest-running movie theaters is on the brink of the end. Joanna joins us now. Joanna.
And Brandon, I have to say, I think I have the best assignment of the night. I got some free popcorn. We're inside this really cool movie theater. Now, this theater has been open more than 100 years. As I mentioned, it survived the Great Depression, the pandemic, but now the owner is calling it a wrap and is looking for someone to keep its legacy alive.
Tony Fox never planned to own a movie theater.
I'll never forget having the customers around the block when we first opened.
Wow.
It was really exciting.
Fox bought the entire property in 2007 as a redevelopment project. 2 years later, he became the owner of the new 400 theaters on Sheridan Road.
I would always stop here for coffee, and I really liked the building. I thought it had a lot of potential. At that point, the entire patio was covered with Village North Theater signs. So the first thing I did was get rid of all of those signs and then redevelop the patio. And then we gutted the theater and redeveloped the theater.
14 years and thousands of movie tickets later, Fox says he's ready to get out of show business.
Always up and down, and sometimes we're completely sold out. I mean, frequently we're really sold out, and it gets you excited and thinking you have business traction, and then the next week, empty.
Now the movie theater is in jeopardy of permanently closing. Rogers Park resident Donna Vitelli knows all about the theater's long history.
The 400 was originally called the Regent Theater when it opened in 1913, and when it opened, it showed all the first-run silent films, including, you've probably heard of The Perils of Pauline.
Digging through the Rogers Park Historical Society archives, the tally found pictures and stories of a theater that's also served as a community hub.
In World War I, they used to have a thing called the 4-Minute Man program, which was a person, a live person from the government, who would come during intermissions in the theater and give people an update on the war.
The tally says at one point there were up to 10 cinemas in the neighborhood. The new 400 is the only one left.
It would be really good for the neighborhood if we could keep it going and operating as a theater. So I hope there's somebody out there that will do that.
That's what Fox is banking on as potential buyers come to look at the property.
I'm hoping that one of the other bigger movie theater operators comes in and takes it over and keeps it as a movie theater. I can't guarantee that, of course.
There's even a neighborhood initiative called the New 400 Street Team, a group of locals holding community movie nights to keep the theater in business.
Tony's moving on, but it's really important to show whoever the next potential owner is that this is like a beloved community treasure. We want the New 400 to stay, and that there is support here in the community for this business to survive.
Some residents are concerned the historical building could be demolished, but the area's alderwoman Maria Haddon says Fox has been working with her to make sure that doesn't happen.
It's also in a lakefront protection zone, so there are a lot more stringent restrictions on what can be built and what could be changed there.
The small, intimate theater still has hidden gems of its past. In Theater 1, you can still find a column from 1912, one of the many reasons Fox says he loves the theater.
Yeah, I just love Rogers Park, and I'm so grateful to everybody who ever came to the theater.
And you still have time to come out and check out a movie here. Now, the owner says that they're hoping to stay open until at least the summer. And I understand there's streaming service out there, but there's something different about coming and sipping on a soda, eating some popcorn, and enjoying the atmosphere. So if you come down, come check this theater out in Rogers Park. Paris and Brandis, I send it back to you.
That's right, Joanna, you did get the good assignment of the night. Thank you. It is almost the weekend. It's when some folks go to a movie, but for some, in fact, it's closer than for others. Paris.
Brandis, what if the weekend actually started like right now? For more and more workers, it actually does. The talk of a 4-day work week is heating up once again, with one state even proposing tax incentives for companies to shrink the work week by a day. Should the 5-day work week be a thing of the past? We will ask our guests, and joining us are Ann O'Donnell, head of HR at TopStep, a financial technology firm based in Chicago, and Jessica Schaefer, vice president at LaSalle Network, a staffing, recruiting, and culture firm also based in Chicago. Welcome, both of you, to Chicago Tonight. So, Ann, your company has gone to an optional 4-day work week. How come?
We did. You know, COVID kind of forced us to think differently about how we work, and we surveyed our employees to find out what was really important to them, and they wanted to make sure that we were having that work-life balance. We were home all the time, and how do you disconnect from work and home? So we thought we would try the 4-day work week, and it's worked out wonderful for us.
How about productivity, morale, everything good?
Everything has skyrocketed.
Skyrocketed, so more productivity.
More productivity,
what do you think that is?
Better morale. I think people really want to have that work-life balance, so they're more, you know, keen to working 4 10-hour days and having those 3 days off in a row. And I think the 3 days off in a row is key.
I wonder if my bosses are listening right now. 3 days off in a row is key. So, Jessica Schaefer, your company tried this several years ago. How did it go?
You know what? It didn't work for our environment and our business. And it's not right for every company, and I'm so glad to hear that it's thriving for TopStep's employees. But for us, it was really hard being in a service-based business where we had to be on call when our clients needed us, when they needed temporary staff. We had to be able to have people working to service those folks.
So, Jessica, what are the things that a company should think about when deciding whether this is appropriate for them or not?
There are a lot of factors that go into play. And I think the biggest thing is, how is your business doing right now? Is it growing? Is it profitable? How is employee productivity? How is employee morale? And I would say a lot of companies tend to make changes when business is bad and when things are going really south. And that's not the best time to make changes. Really, the best time is when things are going well. and the company is growing and profitable, and trying and introducing something new as a benefit to your staff can really suss out whether that will succeed or not.
All right, and your company, so you're doing 4 days a week, but it's kind of a misnomer because you still expect 40 hours, if I'm not mistaken. I think there are some states looking at actual 32 hours in 4 days. Is there a big difference here, you think?
So we do expect 40 hours, but the nice thing about that is also we are flexible with that. So we don't expect that employees are working 10 hours straight. A lot of employees or team members' work can be done, split up in chunks of hours and what works best for them in their family life.
And Ann, we mentioned that there was a trial in the UK. Maryland is the state that's thinking about possible tax incentives. Why do you think this talk is all the rage again? And that's to you, Jessica.
Thank you. I think the biggest thing is people are trying to figure out how do they keep talent. We're still in the period. We're not necessarily in that great resignation period anymore, but my company did a survey, and 3/4 of employees, actively employed people, are looking to leave. They're open to new opportunities. They're open to recruiting firms like mine, calling them up and trying to get them a better opportunity. And companies are saying, we need to do everything we can to keep our people. So they're trying out perks like these.
And is that what your company saw, that some of your employees are thinking, hey, it might be greener pastures elsewhere unless we get some more flexibility?
It was definitely a motivator for our decision, and we want to retain the talent we have. We have fantastic team members now. We want to attract the best in the market, and we survey our employees monthly to find out what continues to be important to them, what's important to them in the future. And the world of work has just changed of what's important to them. I feel like the office parties and that type of stuff, it just isn't as important to them anymore. Now it's flexibility, the ability to spend time with friends and travel.
And Jessica Schaefer, is there any data out there that tells you how a universal 4-day work week would impact the overall economy?
You know what? I haven't seen any data that's like that, but that would be really interesting to read. I think the biggest thing that we've seen and heard from our clients is that oftentimes a 4-day work week isn't a true 4-day work week, because you have employees who are trying to service their customers or their clients. And so they end up working more than 4 10s or whatever that breaks down to in a 4-day work week. And employees end up working more, and productivity stays the same, levels off, maybe grows a little bit. But they're not as fulfilled because they thought they had this beautiful 4-day work week perk, and they're ultimately working the same, if not more.
So that would be a good study for someone to undertake, across different sectors to see what it would really do for it. It increased your productivity. Maybe it would do that for the economy at large.
It has, and what's been really nice about how it's worked at Top Step is that even those that don't take advantage of it, we have no meeting Fridays. So if you're working a traditional 5-day work week and you're working, your productivity on Fridays is really how you want to schedule it. So you have no meetings, you're not really interacting with other people if you don't need to, but you can get as much done as you can or want to on a Friday, which is really nice.
And Jessica, you mentioned, this kind of relates to all the trends going on in the workplace since COVID. What are you seeing in terms of people who want to work from home versus go back to work?
You know what? Surprisingly, we're seeing a lot of folks say we want hybrid work. We want the best of both worlds. So what Ann is saying, they want flexibility, but they also really miss being around people and coworkers and the fulfillment of coming into an office and working as a team. And so we're seeing people say, I'd like to go in 1, 2, 3 days a week. I really want to choose the days I come in. I don't want you to mandate those for me, but I'd like to see people and have more of a routine.
It's interesting. I don't really know what my work hours are because I might get a phone call at 9 in the morning. I do a show at 10 o'clock at night. It doesn't mean that the entire day is occupied, so it's just kind of all over the place. And your company, you were all in person before COVID, and now you're completely remote.
Completely remote, 100%. We have an office in Chicago at the Board of Trade that team members can come into and work out of, but we will never require that an employee or team member be in the office again full-time.
And from what you told me, they want to stay remote.
We survey all the time. We still survey to make sure that we are providing the work environment that our team members want, and this is what they want. We do great get-togethers. We do some big ones throughout the year and then some smaller ones so that we're still getting that face time and that connection.
All right, 3-day weekend and great get-togethers throughout the year. Again, I hope Hope my bosses are listening here at WTTW. All right, thanks to Ann O'Donnell, Jessica Schaefer. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next, a dose of color for a cold winter night, so please stay with us.
Some of you may have seen this joke shared on social media. Chicago doesn't have 4, but 12 seasons in a year. Now, hopefully we've made it to this point, and hopefully we're not far from here, but we do know of at least one place where spring has sprung. Patty Wetley has a story.
Step inside the Chicago Botanic Garden's 9th annual Orchid Show, and you might forget it's winter.
It's important that people know that the garden is a place to come to year-round. When you want to come inside, you want to warm up, you're craving for that color, you're craving to see something bright and warm.
With more than 25,000 different species, the orchid's one of the most diverse plants around, and the show takes full advantage of that variety. There are orchids with spots, stripes, and ruffles, shades of pink, purple, and yellow. There are orchids hanging like disco balls, climbing up columns, taking up entire rooms. You get the point. It's a big show, and this year it's magnified.
The theme Magnified came about because it was like, how can we show the orchid and its big qualities and get close to those big qualities? There's so many intricacies about the orchid that are so tiny that you can't see with the naked eye.
The show encourages people to look at orchids through a different lens, literally. There are magnifying glasses for close-up views, funhouse mirrors that distort and exaggerate, a short film that zooms in on the inner world of orchids. And for a showstopper, there's a giant telescope made of orchids that's become quite a sensation with visitors.
It's beautiful. You can't help but take a photo of it. You watch their pure joy of looking at these flowers and reveling in them and how much they enjoy looking at it.
Most of the show's 10,000 blooms are hybrids imported from across the country. But some come from the garden's own orchid greenhouse called an orchidarium. Botanist Johanna Hutchins manages this collection of nearly 2,000 plants, which includes a number of rare and endangered species.
If something happens to them in the wild, we still have representatives of the species in the collection, and having the plants in the collection allows us to try and find out more information about how to grow them, what they need in their natural environment, and then perhaps why they're having issues.
The orchidarium isn't open to the public, but Hutchins gave us a tour. There are specimens in the collection from as far away as Australia and as close to home as, well, Illinois. That's right, we said Illinois.
One thing that a lot of people don't seem to realize is we do have over 40 species of orchids that are native to Illinois. There's one native Illinois species that it blooms in the summer, so you can see this is last summer's flower stalk, but it has a leaf in the winter. So this can get covered in snow and it will still survive. So there are a lot of really cool plants, even within our own state.
Hutchins says having her own personal orchid show never gets old.
There's always something new to learn, both about the plants that I'm growing and how to better take care of them. And then as I'm trying to find additional plants to add to our collection, learning about those as well. So I'm never bored. And I mean, look around, they're just fun.
But that doesn't mean she takes her work home at night.
Partly due to the fact that I have 2 cats that would eat them, the only orchid I have at home is a Lego orchid.
The Orchid Show runs through March 26th. You can find more details on our website.
So, Patty, what happens to all of those orchids after the show closes?
Okay, so the show closes March 26th, then they go on sale March 30th. People, I've been told, line up like it's a Harry Styles concert at the United Center. They want to get in and get a shot at some of these orchids.
They're serious
like
about
9
their
to
orchids.
4, I believe, are the hours.
Okay, folks are serious about their orchids.
Yes,
now,
they are.
I'm not proud to say this, Patty, but I've been the owner of an orchid or two that did not quite live up to its full potential.
Yes.
What advice would you give those of us who want to try and keep a new orchid alive?
Well, we asked Johanna Hutchins about this, and she said, yes, they do have a reputation for
for being difficult to grow, and some of them can be, which is why you need to do your homework. Some of them are easier to grow for newbies, and so you need to pick the orchid that's right for you. If you're a beginner, don't go for the really complicated ones. Also, they need consistency. So if you're going to put it in a window where it's going to get a lot of variation in sunlight or temperature, that's not the best place for it. So again, do your homework. Sorry, they're not like
orchids.
super no maintenance. Yes.
All right, Patty Watley, thanks as always.
Thanks, Brandis.
And we're back to wrap things up right after this.
Where have we been? Where are we at? Where are we going?
Essentially to be able to help anyone and everyone in the community, whether that's through academic support, social emotional learning, or just providing a safe space for youth to be able to be there.
This is the fabric of the neighborhood. You need to take care of the neighborhood. It's an ecosystem.
And that's our show for this Thursday night. Please join us tomorrow night at 7 for the Weekend Review and at 10 for Chicago Tonight. Using the Red Line extension to spur community-driven development.
And an exhibit featuring works from war-impacted artists. And now for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Paris Schutz.
For sure, definitely Paris Schutz. I'm Brandis Friedman. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm dedicated to preserving the dignity and rights of all individuals.
Get set to discover a side of Ireland you never knew existed.
That's where Halloween started.
2 countries on one small emerald isle. A brave new and old world.
This is a mystical place.
A journey of music, traditions, and fresh perspectives.
Well, it was worth the climb.
These are some of the surprises hiding in plain sight.
Amazing.
I'm Peter Greenberg.
Friday at 8 on WTTW.
You're all very welcome to this evening's very special celebration of Ireland's road to freedom as told through the songs of her people.
By the rising of the moon,